Hello everyone, I'm back. The reason why I'm doing this as a live stream as opposed to a video is because I want to show some evidence. Because Shane's been getting a lot of unnecessary, in my opinion, heat for something he's done, a creative decision he made when other people make the exact same decision but nothing says anything to them because they are mainstream media and not a YouTuber. Those that aren't aware, Shane's currently doing an 8-part series on Jake Paul. Now, as part of the conversation, there is the people that are saying he's a psychopath, he's a sociopath, he's not right in the head type of thing, so he went to see a therapist. Right. Jump over onto here. I did find a tweet where somebody actually called out the therapist that he spoke to in episode 2. But that tweet no longer exists, even though you can still see it. Basically saying, I'm watching Shane Dawson's series, and it's completely unethical for a therapist to monitor someone's behaviour without their consent. But if you remember in the video, Shane says she will be there, but if he's not happy with it when we tell him, we won't show it. So, at the end of the day, Jake has allowed it because Shane wouldn't have put it out otherwise. And B, this woman is not a licensed psychologist, she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. To do marriage and family therapy, you have to be a psychologist. It just means she's not a psychiatrist. And for those that don't know what the difference is, a psychologist has a PhD. One of the most famous psychologists out there is Dr. Phil. He has a PhD in psychology. Then you have psychiatrists. They have a medical degree. They go to medical school. They do pre-med, medical school, residencies and all that before they become a doctor and they pass all the final exams. The major difference is, obviously, the education is different because a psychiatrist can also bear in mind physical ailments as well. But on top of that, a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, a psychologist cannot. Okay? So, they have the same training. Essentially, they have the same background. It's just one is in a medical sense, and you do have the whole learning anatomy and everything beforehand. And the other one, you don't have to learn anatomy, you just have to learn about the way the mind works. Okay, that's that cleared up. Then, this is one that really pissed me off. Right. And Madison, Skinny Avengers, I love you to pieces. BuzzFeed. So Shane Dawson's The Mind of Jake Paul series isn't okay, but publishing quizzes on what famous psychopath are you is, yeah? And you type in BuzzFeed psychopath and these top 3 quizzes, we're on the psychopathic spectrum. Are you truly psychopathic? And do you have the mind of a serial killer? All in the top 3 search results. But Shane's video is wrong because it's glorifying or it's romanticizing psychopathy or sociopathy, but also because it's dramatizing it. First of all, to actually be diagnosed as either a sociopath or a psychopath, you have to go to therapy with either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Either can diagnose it. And they have to go through hours of looking through who you are before they can say one way or another. However, there are things that every single human does that do have a sort of like a psychotic tinge or a sociopath tinge to them. Now, the main kickback was this, and I have several videos already queued up. Okay? This is the video everybody's kicking off about, where he sat with the therapist Katie Morton. He's sitting with her. They're talking about being a psychopath because people call Jake a psychopath. Being a sociopath because people call Jake a sociopath. They also call him a narcissist, and that is briefly mentioned. And they also say, and she also mentions other antisocial personality disorders. Now, just because you're antisocial doesn't mean you're going to be a psychopath or a sociopath. It just means you have a personality disorder. Doesn't mean you're going to be dangerous. Okay? And don't start saying, oh, Joe Bloggs is a sociopath or a psychopath, because you don't know. Okay? And also some people are saying that it's making mental illness look bad because of the music he chose. Now listen. Now, this is why I've got my headphones in, so I can actually listen to the music.
You might know it just because of society. Think about like radio DJs will be like, oh, here's a sad song about a lost lover. I mean, I don't know. So they probably learned, but I think...
like a robotic state of living, right? So
yeah, they're kind of like a robot.
I saw an image.
Right. So it's like the music, the noises, but that's good editing, right? That's the creative decision that Andrew and Shane chose. Right? Now, I have 2 separate other videos queued, ready to go. One of them is a Fifth Estate video about a case of, I think it's called Chas Paretel. Probably butchered that name. It's a Canadian documentary of a young lad that had mental health issues, and when because even though it's in Canada, they didn't have the support that they needed, so he ended up taking his own life. Now listen to the music in the background.
And that is how at the age of 10, Chas Petrella ended up in an institution.
Right. Now that is that's the Canadian Broadcasting Company using that music. Now, this one, for anybody who doesn't know who this guy is, check yourself. This is a 2020 documentary on Elliot Rodgers, he's a mass shooter. I have his manifesto here. He injured 14 and killed 6. Listen to the music in the background.
Video game, World of Warcraft.
My enemies before, and I felt a small sense of spiteful gratification for doing so.
Feeding on that fulfillment.
Again, creepy music in the background. But yeah, Shane gets so much hate just because of the music he chose. Even though 2020 and Fifth Estate use very similar music, very similar emotive type of music in their videos. But because Shane's a YouTuber and Fifth Estate in 2020 are mainstream, Shane's under a different rule. Now, I generally don't put music in the background of my videos because I can't at the minute, so, you know, there is that. But on top of that, it can be distracting to people. Now, what you have to realise is Shane never intended to glorify mental illness or glorify psychopathy or sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder or any form of mental illness. And he's said that time and again that he didn't mean for that to happen, that and the main issue everybody has is the music. And it's like, really, you're going to be so petty over the music and the way he's edited his videos. And that's the way he's edited his videos for years. Whenever he did his ghost videos, he edited the same way. Did his conspiracy videos, he edited the same way. It's his and Andrew's editing style. It's the way they work together. Now, like I said, everybody's kicking off because it mentioned in today's episode, which was episode 4, that he's going to take the therapist with him. And he's going to have her observe him, essentially. So she can sort of see what he's like in his normal environment. When the camera's running, when the camera isn't running. so that she can gauge roughly, what type of person he really is. Now, a lot of people are kicking off about that because it's like, well, it's not right for him to be observed without his permission. But Shane actually says, if he doesn't want to do it, I will not force him to do it. If he doesn't want to be... If he doesn't want that to be shown, I won't show it. He said that. And the thing is with Shane, when he says something, he means it. And it's like everybody's saying, yeah, but what about comparing him to Logan? The brothers, they were raised in the same house, by the same people, by the same environment. They're in the same environment, they're in the same cooking pot. But you have to remember that Logan's the older brother by 2 years. And some of the stuff that Logan's done even outshines some of the shit that Jake's done. And we all know what I'm on about. We're on about Japan. All I need to say is that, and you know exactly what I mean. And the plain simple fact is, Logan's behaviour has an effect on Jake. Just like when I was younger, my brother, my stepbrother, and my stepsister's behaviour had an impact on me. And the way they behaved actually made me turn out to be the way I am. And made me do what I wanted to do and stay away from what they were doing. Because their lives are very similar in some respects. Mine is different. So the way you are raised does impact who you become. Now, there was a few other things that came out that we found. First off, the pranks were faked, apparently. Now, do I 100% believe that? I think most of them might have been, but I think some of the bullying, Jake went too far. And I think even people near him actually said, yeah, you're going too far. Because I think that's one of the reasons why Nick pulled out. Because I think he said it was that, and the way things were with Greg being there, that he pulled out. And I know a lot of people are complaining because Shane hasn't stressed the whole Greg thing going on. And it's like, yeah, because that didn't come out until after the videos were filmed. So he can't then go back to Jake and say, I need to talk to you about this. Because what Greg does it can impact Jake, because obviously it's guilty by association. But it shouldn't, because Jake is his own entity. Jake is a person. Jake is an adult. Jake is a man that runs a business and so on. But because his dad is involved in that business, it does cause issues along the line. And yeah, I think that maybe the edits could have been toned down a little bit, or the actual introduction to particularly episode 2, he should have sat down and said, look, these are what being said. And he did sort of do this, but I don't think it registered with everybody. And everybody's saying, yeah, but what about all the stock footage that they used? And what about all the other pictures of YouTubers? Almost everybody on YouTube, everybody who's a YouTuber, anybody who's on YouTube has this thing where they want to be accepted and where they want to be, they want everybody to basically give them this huge hug, and they want people to include them in everything. And it's like, yeah, but you can only do so much in a circumstance like that. You can't, as the old saying goes, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Just because you do some things that are psychotic doesn't mean you are a psychopath. It's a perfect example, and I'll use myself on this one. Excuse me. If you read any of my books, you will learn that the stuff that my characters do are horrendous. And I would give you some examples, but I'm not gonna, because they're a bit especially if you're a bit on the young side. Now, people could say because I write that I'm a psychopath, and it's like, well, no, because I never do that. I have too much empathy for people. I care too much about other people. I'll see people on the street and, my heart will go out to them because of something that they're going through, or something that you can see that they're going through. And anybody who does anything, whether it's art or whether it's writing, whether it's YouTube, even whether it's playing an online game, you do have to sort of do things that you wouldn't normally do. On games, you go around killing people, sometimes for hours, or go around killing creatures. That I would never go out and kill a creature, ever. But I do it on games, because it's not real. When you do it in real life, it is worse. And Jake hasn't killed anybody or anything like that. But, he has done some pretty dodgy stuff, which I think Shane will tackle him on the next episode, which is on Friday. But you've got to remember that Shane is one person. And you can't glorify mental illness, because anybody who has mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, antisocial personality disorder, anything, they know how nasty it is. I know how nasty it is. I have depression. I know what my bad days are like. I know what my good days are like. My husband has anxiety. I know what his bad days are, and I know what his good days are. Most people have, a large amount of people have a form of mental illness. Most, if not 100% of people that are involved in stuff like Elliot Rogers was, have some form of mental illness. They're either a psychopath, sociopath, or the mentally ill. And that's just the way they are. And sometimes, even looking back, when you look at Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, when you look at the way they are, you can clearly see that Dylan is really struggling with something. Eric, not so much, but Dylan is. And he's not sharing this information so that you can diagnose yourself as a psychopath or a sociopath. Because while they're given the list, you might say hit 2 things on that list of, say, 12. But you have to hit more than 2 things on that list to be a psychopath. The same with narcissists. The same with sociopaths. The same with any form of what they call antisocial personality disorders. Just because you are guilty of a few things that are on that list doesn't mean you are a sociopath. Doesn't mean your best friend is a sociopath. Doesn't mean your teacher's a sociopath. They might be, but you can't diagnose that unless you've actually had the education. And while, you will sort of think, And it's like, I did watch part of PewDiePie's video on this, and he was saying that the only reference he could find to the 1 in 25 was relating to a book cover. Now, the problem is, when you are, when you're doing something like psychology or stuff like that, part of your job is you sign up for these, they're called research journals. Now, normal people generally can't sign up for them. And unless you can actually search those, you will not be able to search every paper that's ever existed. It's just not possible. I could sign up for them, but I don't, because I don't have the money to do that, because they do cost. And basically it is, you sign up, you'll be able to search a term, and it'll give you, say, 20 papers on the subject. And the normal internet doesn't find those search results, because it is on the internet, it is behind a paywall, so you can't search it. Sometimes you might be able to get a small Cliff Notes version of it, but they don't show up if you say 1 in 24 or a sociopath. So I'd have to see the papers she's got that from to be able to say yes and no. And because I don't have access to that information, I can't say that it's true, but I also can't say that it's not true. Which PewDiePie should know, but I've been in, when I was at university, I had access to all those things, but I don't go to university anymore, so I don't have access to any of that stuff. and I'm not going to put myself in more debt to just go to university just to source check somebody who doesn't necessarily have to provide where she's got that information from. She can do, but she doesn't have to. At the end of the day, see Shane's series as a bit of education, but not much. Don't take it too seriously. Don't read too much into the whole diagnosing of a psychopath. He was just getting a bit of research on the topic, going forward and, you know, progressing forward in the story, because he's been told Jake's a sociopath, Jake's a psychopath, Jake's not all there. So you've got to give, you know, he's doing what a actual documentarian should do. He's doing his research. Yeah, if he didn't do his research, everybody would complain. Lay off him with relation to the music, because everybody does it. Everybody does it. Every single apology video has sad music in the background. Everybody uses music to emotionally manipulate their audience. Anybody who does a YouTube video and puts music in, it's like, or you're doing it to add to the feel of the video. Like when I use spooky music to do either my book trailers or murder mysteries, then it adds to it because it's spooky, because you're talking about murder, and my books usually involve spooky stuff. So lay off him with his editing style, because that's the editing style we've known him for years. It's the same editing style that he uses for his conspiracy theory videos. It's the same editing style he used for the Bunny series, for the Tanner series, for the Jeffrey series. So you've got to understand it. You've got to expect it from him, that he's going to have that editing style, because that is the way he edits. And for those going on at him about the whole Greg, then you really need to think, first off, I don't really think that's something that Jake will want to talk about. Secondly, it was after they'd already recorded. And third, he might address that at a later stage. We don't know. There's another 4 pieces yet to come. And at the end of the day, Jake is doing, Shane is doing with Jake what a lot of us have wanted to do. A lot of us have wanted to sit down with Jake and say, what the fuck were you thinking? A lot of us have wanted to say, is this relationship fake? Is this drama fake? Are these stunts fake? We've always wanted to do that. But Shane has been the only person Jake has trusted to do that, because while Shane has like a scope, you know, like a vision, he will also let the project take him anywhere that the project wants to take him. So life is life, and things are going to happen. And don't hate on Jake just because, or Shane, because of the series. Let the series play out before you start hating, because I've got a funny feeling we're going to be surprised by the end of it. And I do think that the family environment has an impact on the way that Logan and Paul behave. And I do agree with Logan that there is a psychopathy scale, and some people are more psychotic than others. And some people do mildly psychotic things, while other people don't. And it's like another... I'll show you this, because it's like they're going mental. BuzzFeed are going mental because of this series. But there's a video there. As a BuzzFeed video. 9 psychopathic thoughts you've had but don't admit. And then, are you a psychopath? They're both videos. But yet YouTube have called Shane out on his series. Why? You've done worse. I don't get it. At the end of the day, mental illness is something a lot of people suffer from. Mental illness is something that's involved in a lot of people's worlds. Don't use a YouTube video to diagnose yourself or others. Go to a doctor, whether it's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a family GP like we have over here, or a family doctor over in America or in Canada. Just go to a doctor, because they're the ones that are trained to know what they're doing. And asking for a bit of help isn't that much. And Shane does want to help people with mental illness, because he himself has mental illness, which a lot of people tend to forget. So at the end of the day, Shane's doing a good job, in my opinion. Yeah, I think some of the editing has been a little bit overboard, and I do think that some of the reactions to that edits have been a little bit overboard. There is a way of saying things where you're not being an absolute dick, and he's said that. He addressed that on Monday. He actually, I think he spent like 5-10 minutes of the video on Monday talking about that it wasn't his intention to do what everybody thought he had done. So let's just wait and see what the video series ends up like, because it's the only way we can do that. Give him a chance. Now let's see what happens. But yeah, tell you, some people. Okay, stay safe, be good, have fun. I will see you Friday. I'll probably do Friday's video tomorrow again, because it makes it a bit easier. Although I haven't got a topic yet, I'm sure I'll think of one. So catch you then.